going through this, because you can't have a relationship with God, and God expects you to treat women with respect. You can't have a relationship with God and do this. You can't. The more that you're close to God, the less you're going to do this.
Mm.
And if you're, let's say, on a music team, if you're pastoring a church and you're having these issues, you've got to ask yourself, where's your relationship? Because that's got to affect you every single time. Because it affects God every single time. This is, in God's kingdom, there's a reason the apostles walked around saying brothers and sisters in Christ. You're seeing someone who's a potential sister in Christ, or a potential brother in Christ, every time you watch one of those videos, or you look at them in a picture. Whether they value themselves or not, are you valuing them? I know some women who've said, I'd gladly do it. It's a good way to make money. Well, what are they valuing? For themselves, their choice, they'd find them valuing themselves. But you've got to ask yourself, are you valuing that person? Because God intended that for the marriage room. And if we open this discussion up, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to say, you know what, it's great to have, that's Old Testament thinking, or that grace doesn't cover, grace covers all those sins. The reality is, God made you. You want to be respected. You need to respect them.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it that we need to focus on is where does that motivation come from to be exposing ourselves to that, and what is continuing to drive us to seek our own gratification in that way. And if we can get to the bottom of that, then we can start to figure out how to deal with that problem on a personal, individual scale. If you're someone that's been battling that, has battled with that, is battling with that, and on a cultural society scale where it's becoming so much more of a problem.
Well, absolutely. But the other thing to remember is it is an addiction. It drives the hormones into those right areas that makes us feel good, so we want more of it. Much like sex is an addiction. In marriage, not a problem. A good addiction like that is not a problem. Outside of marriage, it's a problem. And I think we also need to remember, and this is obviously, we're talking to Christians out there. This creates a soul tie. Because, especially for guys are sight oriented. We see, we start lusting. And it can create a tie if we allow ourselves to go too far with that. And we've really got to be willing to talk about this stuff. Be willing to not let it, not stop us asking for help. To go to someone and say, hey, you know what? I'm struggling with this right now. Because it isn't, in today's day and age, today's world, Jesus said, I don't bring condemnation. He doesn't condemn us. If we go to him and say, God, we're really struggling with this. But what he will do, because he hates sexual sin. The Bible makes that clear. But what he will do is he will judge us if we don't. And I think part of that, the ancient Jews knew to fear God.
Yeah.
And today we struggle with that. What will God do? Oh, I'll get to heaven and I'll find out then. And this morning I woke up to news that a movie reviewer I watch passed away from a stroke. And I thought, no one got to him.
Yeah.
No one got to him. Pornography breaks your spirit apart. Christian, non-Christian, doesn't matter. And it is something we need God to intercede with, but it's also something we need to say, hey, we need help.
Yeah, and it's something that, we've said here many times already over this over these few minutes, that it's something that is a big and a growing problem with lots of people and with societies, but it's that point where it's something that society knows is a problem. And if you walk down the street and you asked everyone that you went past what are some of the things that people are addicted to, it would come up very, very quickly. But it's still something that has that overshadowing, that sense of shame that's related to that, more so than any other addiction, which makes it harder for people to deal with, because it's harder for people to stand up and go, yeah, I've got a problem with this. Even though people know that it's a thing, it's still more shameful, more taboo than having an addiction to smoking or an addiction to gambling or drinking or something like that. Because it's still, even though we know that it's there, even though we know that it's a problem, people still see it on sort of a whole nother level of shamefulness about it. And that makes people more reluctant to identify with it, first of all, talk to anyone about it, and actually seek help. And without doing that, it's near impossible to change.
You're right. And I think the attitude that you just put is actually the Christian attitude. If you're in church, that's where we feel shame. I know a lot of people that aren't Christians that watch pornography with their spouse. And I don't think that's right. But they're not ashamed of it. To them, it's just a thing. They don't find any problems with it. And I guess in a lot of the topics that we've done, that you and Joe have done, you've got to have that, what is the Christian perspective? What is Christ saying? And when you have that relationship, that's what brings shame. Because without that relationship, you're not going to feel shame. Because the devil doesn't care. He's encouraging it.
Yeah, and he's not going to allow you to feel that shame, because he doesn't want that to turn into a reaction to it. That's right. The devil's not going to sit there and go, well, you feel bad about yourself for watching that, because that opens the opportunity for you to see something that you don't like in yourself with that, and then to want to change about it. If you're living in that secrecy of it, you're not opening up to it, you're just hiding from what is your own reality with this addiction, you're not going to be able to step out against it. And that, that stigma that is placed on pornography makes it really, really hard for people to do that.
And again, I think, this is a church problem, because outside the church, it's not a problem. You can say, hey, I've been watching some porn, and they'll laugh, and they'll put it in the church concept, and suddenly people judge you. And that's what they feel. They feel like if we open up and say, hey, we've had, especially men, we open up and say, hey, we've had this problem. And
Getting men to open up in the first place about anything.
Obviously, you get it. Yeah, that's right. But if you say, hey, I've had this problem. I have a problem looking at naked women. Outside the church, he's like, that's not a problem. Inside the church, suddenly the fear becomes you're going to be judged. You're going to be criticized. You're going to be ostracized, maybe. You're going to have to step down from several departments because, you may look at the girl the wrong way. And we really need to, as a church, I think, as a bunch of believers, accept that we make mistakes and that God forgives us. We need to forgive each other. And I think, obviously this is a long topic and it's not going to be covered in 1 or 2 sessions, but what we do know is that we've got to put Christ first.
Yeah.
But we've also got to be willing to hear this. We've got to be willing to not judge, not criticize. That we each make mistakes, we each have flaws, and we need to be able to go to that person, go to people within our church and say, people we can trust. And say, hey, you know what? I don't want you to judge me for this, but this is what I'm going through.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that even as we sort of sat around talking about releasing this this episode, and as I spoke to other people about having this as a topic, people sort of sat back and went, "Ooh, that's going to be hard. It's controversial. It's going to be putting people on the spot with certain things that they have for themselves, and you've got to just understand that it's worth it." People have got to understand, and people who are fighting against these addictions have got to understand that it's something that they need to be comfortable enough with the people around them to step outside of that shamefulness, step outside of that secrecy, and ask for help.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah, I think, and I'll make. I mean, we're being told we've got to wrap this up, and we do. But I'll just say this: if you are struggling with pornography, and you're in the church, and you feel like you cannot be talk to anyone within that church, I would suggest going to talk to your pastor and saying, "Hey, you know what? This is something I'm struggling with, but I haven't been able to bring it to you because I feel like I'm going to be judged by people." That's what your pastor's there for. And but obviously also take it to God. If we're struggling with things, at the very least we can take them to God. I'd also, if it is, sometimes we need to talk about these things in a place that's safe, secure. So counselling or psychiatry, whatever that case is, there is a big time we need to talk this stuff out. But the first thing always, you need to talk it out. You need to take that power away.
Definitely. Alrighty. Hitting a deeper level today on Chat Zion, and hopefully it has been helpful. The point of us doing it was really we wanted to make it something that would help people out there who are struggling with this. So please, as always, comment, like us, share us. Any questions and comments that you've got for us, email them through chatzionmail@gmail.com. And until next time, God bless.
God bless.